It's time to continue this series where I take a look at two different franchises to review, compare, and contrast each entry against one another. This time we're on to Dragon Quest II versus Final Fantasy II. Two entries that are considered to be among the worst their franchises have to offer, both seemingly biting off more than they could chew, but who will come out on top? Let's find out. Starting with Dragon Quest II, where we'll be looking at the Nintendo Switch and mobile version. If you enjoy these videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications to all. Now let's begin. Dragon Quest II came out in 1987 in Japan and 1990 in North America. This game takes place 100 years or so after the events of Dragon Quest I, with the hero from 1 and Princess Gwaelin leaving Alefgard to start 3 new countries. After years of peace, a cult based around the god of destruction Malroth is formed and led by the evil cleric Hargon, known as the Children of Hargon. As the cult begins to expand and grow in power, the world begins to be once again swarmed by dangerous monsters. It all comes to a head when Hargon sends his followers to attack the castle of Moonbrook. The kingdom of Moonbrook is destroyed by the Children of Hargon, and the Princess of Moonbrook has gone missing. One of the guards escapes and makes his way to another great kingdom originally founded by the descendant of Erdrick, Middenhall. There he passes along the message that Moonbrook has fallen at the hands of Hargon and his disciples, and that he must be stopped. With the king being too old, he passes the responsibility to his son and the first of the main characters of Dragon Quest II, the Prince of Middenhall. Your journey begins here as you play as the Prince of Middenhall and head west to find your cousin, another descendant of the Luminary line, the Prince of Canik. The Prince of Middenhall, who from here on I'll refer to as simply Middenhall, is a strong physical attacker but lacks any magic whatsoever. He's essentially your warrior class style character and can equip the best weapons and gear in the game. So it's off to find our cousin, the Prince of Canik. Before finding him, you notice that his father and even sister begin to get worried about him, which is incredibly valid because the Prince of Canik is known as the absolute worst character in all of Dragon Quest. Heck, the NES version of who I'll now refer to as Canik is the worst JRPG character of all time. Thankfully, they've given him better stats, more abilities, and made him able to equip better gear in these remakes. Canik and Middenhall then head off together towards Moonahan, a small town outside the castle of Moonbrook, and find an odd dog that seems to want to follow them around. After gearing up and grinding a bit, you head to what's left of Moonbrook Castle to witness its devastation with your own eyes. Speaking to the spirits of the king and his people, you learn that you need to get your hands on Ra's mirror in order to break the curse that was put on the princess. So you go and grab the magic mirror that reveals anyone who peers into its true form, and show it to the little doggo that followed you around in Moonahan for it to reveal that the dog was in fact the surviving princess of Moonbrook. Now with the third cousin, the Princess of Moonbrook, your party's complete. While Canik had some minor healing spells, he's clearly supposed to be the mage of the party despite the fact that he doesn't really get any decent offensive spells until late in the game. Moonbrook, however, is a great healer who also gets her hands on some powerful offensive magic, possibly making her the first sage in the franchise. She overshadows Canik completely in every way other than the fact that he can deal a bit more physical damage. In the original NES release of the game, the best weapon Canik can buy and equip is the freaking Iron Spear, which you would already have access to at this point in the game. That is how shitty this dude is. Now that you've got the whole gang together, it's time to live up to your ancestors and stop the spread of the Children of Hargon. In order to do that, however, we've got to get off this first continent. So you head to the Pillar of Winds to acquire the Windbreaker, then brave the Carnivines and Baboons to reach the southern side of the Dragon's Horn, a pair of massive towers on either side of a river that divides two continents. The Windbreaker is designed to allow its wearers to glide on the wind, so you use it to jump from the top of the southern Dragon Horn and glide across to the other side of the river and into a new land. The heroes find their way to the coastal town of Rippleport, where they rescue a young girl from a group of Hargon's followers. As a reward for rescuing his granddaughter, an old man gifts you with his ship. Before setting sail, you learn of a sunken treasure to the north, but as much as you search for it, even if you've played this game a million times and know exactly where it should be, it can't be found in the Switch and mobile version until you've spoken to someone in another kingdom. This is honestly the worst change they made to this remake, as from this point on in all versions, you're never given any direction in the game. You see, Dragon Quest II is a massive game compared to its predecessor, at least 4 times the size of the original map. And now that you have a ship, you can explore a ton of different countries, kingdoms, and villages, but without any real direction, this is where most people just sail around aimlessly and eventually give up. You set sail around the landmass to your east, then follow a river north to a very familiar land. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Alefgard, the country Dragon Quest I takes place in, is here in Dragon Quest II. Not only is it here, but you can see the scale of the world of Torland compared to how small the country of Alefgard from Dragon Quest I is. It's crazy how if the people of Tentacle Castle had just built a boat, we could have sailed straight across the river and faced the Dragon Lord immediately. But first, let's see how our old stomping grounds are doing, and oh my god! This place has gone to shit! The king's pushed out and went into hiding, and the people are suffering from terrible morale with the threat of Hargon looming over them. Thankfully, this asshole here tells you about the sparkle you need to find in order to find the sunken treasure, making the damn thing appear on the map. So you leave the depressing land of Alefgard, go grab the sunken treasure, and return it to the man who lost it. He thanks you by giving you the Echo Flute, which will echo and play it if you're in the vicinity of one of the sigils. What are the sigils, you ask? We don't freaking know yet, so let's go see what's going on in the Dragon Lord's old stomping ground of Charlock Castle. Thankfully, the hero from Dragon Quest 1 apparently chucked Erdrick's sword back down here, so we grab that and head down to the Dragon Lord's throne room, where we find the great-great-grandson of the Dragon Lord himself. As you grip your sword and prepare for battle, you learn that this guy's heard of Hargon and his ways, and was actually planning on taking on Hargon himself until you showed up. So he offers to help you out by explaining that you need the 5 sigils spread throughout the world in order to gain the protection of the goddess, and tells you where to take them. This is where Dragon Quest II kind of falls apart. If you don't have the maps included in the NES release of the game, or the internet to guide you to where the sigils are, you're pretty much doomed to wander the world searching for towns and clues. Most people journey from Tentacle Castle southward and notice the lighthouse on an island which is home to one of the sigils. But if you go here first, chances are you'll get your ass beat. So instead, you get the key, then enter a bunch of teleportals and open some jail doors to get some of the sigils. Break out the thief in Burrowell to get the Watergate key, which is used to redirect some of the water that was blocking off the Tower of the Moon, which holds the Moon Shard, which is then used to raise the tides, granting access to the Sea Cave. In the Sea Cave, you find the false idol, which is needed to enter the Cave to Roan, or Renderak as it's now known. Make your way to Durkendor, where the king wants you to fight in the arena in order to get the Moon Sigil, and now you should be strong enough to go back to the lighthouse. The lighthouse can be a bit rough, but make your way to the top where you'll get fooled by some monsters pretending to be an old man. Beat their asses and take the last sigil from them. Take all of your sigils to the Rubis Shrine and grab the Eye of Rubis, which will be needed to break Hargon's illusions later on. It's now time to head to Hargon's country, the land of Roan, or Renderak. Use the teleportal in Baran to get to the outskirts of Renderak. Then you use the false idol to open up what's known to old school Dragon Warrior fans as the most brutal dungeon in Dragon Quest, or even JRPG history, the Cave to Roan, or Cave to Renderak. You see, the main reason I keep referring to Renderak by its original name is because the Cave to Roan is an infamous place of legend where many people's journeys came to an end back in the day. The cave is littered with a ton of pit traps that'll send you down to the bottom known as the Hork Pit because it's loaded with zombie-like monsters who have a ton of HP and can status fuck the shit out of your party. Thankfully, in this modern remake of the game, it's not nearly as bad, but still pretty damn rough. Make your way through this torturous cavern, and remember to grab the Thunderbolt Blade hidden down here because it's the most powerful weapon for the Prince of Middenhall. Then you can finally reach the country of Renderak. But you ain't out of the woods yet. There's one last place to heal and save your game, and if you die between the cave and this location, you'll have to redo the entire cave over again.
Okay, we are almost fucking there, guys. We are almost fucking... It's right there. Oh my god, it's a Frostburn. Oh my god, please let us flee. Oh my god. Oh my god. We gotta redo... If we die here, we gotta redo the whole fucking thing. Please let us flee. For the love of fuck. I'm dead. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Please let us flee. We're like 4 steps away. Oh, we're so fucking close. Oh my god. We're 1 step away. Oh my god. Don't do this. Okay. Holy fuck. Oh, we made it. We fucking made it.
Now it's time to grind your ass off because the trek from here to Hargon's castle is a dangerous one. With about half of the enemies in this land being able to one-hit party wipe you with their thwack and kamikaze abilities, you'll need to be strong enough just to reach Hargon's castle with enough MP to fight his top generals. Trust me, this entire last segment from the Cave to Roan onwards is an absolute gauntlet. Once you finally make your way inside Hargon's castle, you'll notice it looks exactly like Middenhall Castle. Well, that's what the Eye of Rubis is for. Use it and it'll break you free from the illusion, revealing Hargon's castle's true form. Next, we've got to make our way through his castle, facing off against his top generals in the Children of Hargon. With Atlas, you need to watch out for his immense physical attacks and crits, so dish out as much damage as you can while tending to your wounds. Pazuzu can be a pretty intense boss fight as well, but with enough determination, you can wreck his ass. Finally, you've got to face off against the powerful Belial, who knows a ton of powerful attacks, so play defensively and hit him when you can to put an end to the Children of Hargon for good. Next up is the cult leader Hargon himself. Begin the battle with your butt cheeks clenched because you're in for a ride. Hargon has some powerful and annoying breath attacks, as well as Kaboom, which will hit your entire party, and has a fairly strong physical attack. So buff the hell out of your team and chip away at him, but don't play too defensively, because this dickhead's got some good healing spells and he will heal himself. Fight tooth and nail to finish him off, but as he's dying, he uses his own life as a sacrifice to finally summon the god of destruction, Malroth. You try to leave, thinking you've finished the big bad, only for sentient flames to block your way, trapping you in a fight to the death against the god of destruction himself. The NES version of this prick had the full heal spell and would spam it like crazy, making Malroth an absolute nightmare to face off against. Thankfully, he's been nerfed a bit in these newer versions, but is still no walk in the park. Malroth's Inferno spell does a ton of damage to the entire party. He'll also be sure to sap all your defenses and buff his own, so watch out for his devastating physical attacks and try to keep everyone buffed and healed. Once you take him down, it's so satisfying, and it's off to the victory tour. The victory lap in Dragon Quest II is so much better than it was in the first game, because you get to revisit Tantegel Castle, the Dragon Lord's grandson, and all the different castles you've been to along your journey. Finally, you go and see your father, the King of Middenhall, who offers to make you king. Enjoy the fireworks celebration, you did it. You beat possibly the worst and most difficult Dragon Quest game of all time. Overall, Dragon Quest II, despite being super ambitious, is kind of a step down in terms of enjoyment from the first game. They had great ideas in adding party members and making the world a much more large and explorable one, but they didn't consider the fact that 99% of players wouldn't have a clue where the fuck to go after getting the ship, which really hurts the game. Up until you get the ship, I would say the game has a nice narrative that's easy to follow, memorable, and possibly even fun to play. But other than getting to see our old stomping grounds in Alefgard, and getting to meet our old adversary's grandson, everything after you get the ship is a complete unmitigated mess. How will Final Fantasy's second encounter compare? Well, let's take a look. Final Fantasy II wasn't released here in North America until it was remade in Final Fantasy Origins for the PlayStation in 2002, but was originally released in Japan in December of 1988. Unlike the Dragon Quest franchise, the Final Fantasy series is more of an anthology-style series. By that I mean, for the most part, there are no direct sequels or relations to one another game to game. Other than sharing references, spells, enemies, and at times themes, every Final Fantasy game is its own thing, and well, I suppose you could say Final Fantasy II, more so than any of the others, is its own thing. For Final Fantasy II, they've completely redone how the game works. No longer do you get experience points or character levels. In theory, you now gain stat, spell, and weapon increases by using them. For example, if you take physical damage, your character's HP and defense might increase. If you're casting a certain spell, that spell will eventually level up and become more powerful. Since you're casting, you should gain max MP, and if it's offensive magic, you should gain intelligence, which increases your magical damage. But if it's healing or defensive magic, you should increase your spirit, which boosts the effectiveness of those spells. It all sounds like a fairly neat concept on paper, but in practice, it just does not work. Most of the time, the game will just decide to stop giving you any stat increase progress. And for the entirety of the game, you'll find yourself in only two situations when it comes to combat. Either you are 1 to 2 hit killing everything and too strong to even take damage, or the enemy is 1 or 2 hit killing you and you aren't strong enough to do any damage. There are a few exceptions to this, and if you've lucked out and leveled up the correct elemental spell for that particular battle, you can break this cycle, but for the vast majority of the game, this will be your experience. Now, just like with Final Fantasy I, I'm playing the Pixel Remaster, which thankfully allows you to toggle an increase in gold gained as well as stat increases. Other than like the final area of the game, I turned on double gold and left everything else the same. I'd probably recommend you do the same for the best possible experience. Now let's get to this game's story. Final Fantasy II opens up with the Emperor of Palamecia torching our 4 main characters' hometown, doing a great case of showcasing just how much of a prick this dude is and what he's been doing to the world at large. Firion, Maria, Guy, and Leon are all a tight-knit crew and family, and they try to defend their homes to no avail. All but Leon are rescued by the Wild Rose rebels and their current leader Hilda, the daughter of the rebellion's main leader who is essentially on his deathbed. Throughout the game, you and your crew help Hilda and her rebels in an attempt to free the world from the clutches of the Empire. I love this concept because unlike most Final Fantasy games, in this game, the world has all but entirely been conquered by the villains before the game has even begun. With all the weird changes to the Final Fantasy formula, the one that I did enjoy was the fact that you could learn keywords and attain key items that you could mention, show, and ask people in conversations to get clues as to where your next objective may be. One of the first things you'll notice once you leave town is how pretty much the entire world map is fully connected, allowing you to go anywhere attached by land right from the get-go. Much like this game's leveling system, this is a cool concept that leads to early game deaths, as you don't really know where you should and shouldn't go until you're getting one-hit killed seemingly out of nowhere, having to reload your save right out of the gate. Anyways, eventually you head to the occupied city of Finn and meet Scott in the bar, who gives you a ring. Take that ring back to Hilda and she'll reveal that her and Scott were to be wed, but now he's gone. Eventually she'll tell you about the powerful material known as mithril that if attained could be used to make more powerful weapons and armor, giving the Wild Roses a chance to put up a better fight against the Empire. Minwoo, the white mage, then joins your party and gives you a canoe. Anyone who's seen my Dragon Quest vs Final Fantasy video knows how much I love that damn canoe.
See the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me, and no one knows how far it goes.
After receiving the canoe, you'll learn about the Empire's Dreadnought, which is a massive military airship that's been under construction. You're told that you must prevent the completion of the Dreadnought at all costs, but if the Empire were to complete it, all hope would be lost. So use your canoe to cross the lake to the north and head to the coastal town of Paloom, where the pirates will give you a lift in their ship to Poft, another main coastal hub. Here you'll meet Sid, who becomes a mainstay trope in the franchise, usually as an airship pilot. And he'll tell you about airships and offer you a lift in his for a price. For now, you walk your cheap ass to Salaman, a town to the far north covered in snow. Here you'll meet Joseph, who agrees to help you if you rescue his townspeople forced to being worked by the Empire in Semet Falls. So you head to Semet Falls, where you'll meet Paul the Thief and help him and the people of Salaman escape, then beat up the sergeant in charge of the whole operation and steal the mithril. Head back to the main resistance hub of Altair and let Hilda and the Wild Rose crew know you've got the mithril. Hand it over to the blacksmith so he can make you some badass new mithril gear. Now it's off to the occupied town of Bafsk, where you're told the Dreadnought is being built to put your fancy new mithril gear to good use. In Bafsk, you'll notice everyone talking about how respected of a leader this Dark Knight fellow was, and how much everyone hates Borgin, the current guy in charge of Bafsk. You'll learn that one of the Imperial Knights is actually a Wild Rose spy, so you track him down and he lets you into the sewers, which leads to where the Dreadnought's being built. After passing through the sewers, you go through Baf's cave, and just before reaching the Dreadnought, you're interrupted by the Dark Knight, who stops you in your tracks long enough for Borgin to catch up to you. They both waste your time, allowing the Dreadnought to take off after completion and bomb the absolute fuck out of most of the free towns and cities. You have failed. It's now off to Finn to see who survived and what we should do next. After talking to Sid, you learn that the best way to deal with the Dreadnought is to blow up its engines using the Sunfire. So after asking Hilda about the Sunfire, she sends you off to Salaman to meet up with your old pal Joseph, so you can use his snow raft to get the Goddess's Bell, which you need to gain access to the Sunfire. Once acquiring the Goddess's Bell from the Snow Cavern, it's off to Kashwan Keep to obtain the Eagle's Torch, which is the only thing that can contain the Sunfire. Yoink the Sunfire in a chocobo for the first time in the franchise, and head back to Altair, where you'll find Princess Hilda has been kidnapped.
Of course you realize this means war.
It's time to put the fact that the whole continent is walkable to good use, and march on over to where the Dreadnought's being kept. So you boot the door in, avoid the guards, rescue Sid and Hilda, then dump the Sunfire into the engine core and cheese it. That's right, Empire. Suck on these nuts. Unfortunately, when you make it back, Hilda's dad passes away. So in honor of him, you decide to try gaining the Dragoons as an ally in order to tip the odds in your favor against the Empire. You beat up a pirate named Liila, who's actually pretty cool and decides to join you and allows you to use her ship to sail off to, where the heck are we supposed to go now? So, at this point of the game, you know you're supposed to go to Dazed, the land of the Dragoons, but as far as I could find, you're never told where the heck it is. So instead, I wandered around the seas aimlessly and found some dungeons earlier than I should have. Anyways, eventually you'll find Dazed, but learn that the Dragoons are no more and there's only one remaining Wyvern egg. So you honor the final Wyvern's last wish and track down its egg and, chuck it into the lake at the bottom of a cave? The fuck? Anyways, it's time to finally lay the smackdown on the Emperor. You head to the Colosseum, face off against the Behemoth, and then encounter the Emperor himself. But he bitches out, calls the Black Knight, and has you arrested. Good thing you made friends with the legendary thief Paul, who immediately busts you out of the joint. Tonight, there's going to be a jailbreak. Tonight, we're going to break jails. After the Great Escape, you head back to the Wild Rose base in Altair, and notice that everyone's pretty much left for a base camp outside of Finn Castle, in preparation of taking it back. After meeting with Hilda and Gordon, it's time to go on the offensive and reclaim Finn Castle from the Empire once and for all. You meet up with Leila again and fight your way back to the throne room, where some random ass monster named Gotos awaits. Beat his ass to take back the castle. Now with morale being at an all-time high, and with Hilda and Gordon on their newly reclaimed thrones, you grab the white mask from Finn Castle and it's off to Mysidia to commit war crimes. Oh wait, that happens in an upcoming Final Fantasy game. It's off to Mysidia to acquire the means of learning the most powerful spell of legend, Ultima. In Mysidia, you use the white mask on a pedestal underneath the city, then head back to that random dungeon we found earlier while we were lost looking for the Dragoons to grab the black mask. Take that black mask to the Mysidian cave so you can force it onto your creepy ass doppelganger, blocking the path to the Crystal Rod. With the Crystal Rod in tow, it's time to sail to Mysidia Tower where the Ultima Tome is kept. Unfortunately, once you get close to the tower, the sea opens up into a massive whirlpool, and you end up inside of the Great Leviathan's butthole. Inside, you'll meet others that have been trapped within the Great Water Serpent for years, and thankfully for you, one of them happens to be the last of the remaining Dragoons, Rickard. Rickard agrees to help you escape from the vast butthole of Leviathan, so you make your way towards the creature's mouth with your new companion. Guarding the exit is a goddamn tapeworm. Damn, Leviathan, you owe us for this. After making your escape, you can finally get to Mysidia Tower, fight a bunch of wannabe 4 fiends, and grab the Ultima Tome. This place, like most dungeons in Final Fantasy II, was mazy as shit, and loaded with empty-ass rooms you get teleported into the center of, basically forcing random encounters every time. Also in the final room are the 4 orbs, or crystals maybe? I don't know. I think these are supposed to be the game's version of the 4 crystals, but they're never really mentioned at all, and all they do is randomly increase one of your party members' stats. Oh yeah, Minwoo also died after Kamehamehaing the door to this room open.
No, this isn't happening! There's no reason for me to go on. What? What am I fighting for?
Unfortunately, the way Ultima works is that its damage is based on, like, all your stats and spells levels. So it's completely fucking useless unless you're going to grind your character to max out all their stats, in which case you would have no need for the Ultima spell. Anyways, go back to Hilda and Finn and brag about how you got the legendary Ultima spell, just don't let them know how disappointing it is, so you still look like a badass. Then quickly get the blood sword from the thief Paul's house, because this bad boy does a percentage of your enemy's HP as damage, making it absolutely broken in boss fights. Now it's time to finally hatch that wyvern egg you chucked into the pond. How? By, using some magical mirror in Finn Castle, of course. Using the mirror, the young wyvern hatches and comes directly to Finn, allowing you access to the terrifying cyclone the Emperor just sicked on you. At the top of the cyclone, you'll finally face off against the Emperor of Palamecia. This prick has always been 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, so it's time to pay him back by beating his ass and sending him all the way to hell! After taking care of the Emperor, you're now sick of the Empire's bullshit, so it's time to wipe the Palamecian Empire off the map, dammit. You find out that the Dark Knight has now taken command of the Empire, and that he's none other than your friend and Maria's brother from the very start of the game, Leon. Off to Palamecia we go. But in order to gain access, we need to get an airship from our boy Sid, who gifts it to you as his dying wish. Take your sweet new airship to the skies and head for Palamecia. After airdropping from your snazzy new airship into Palamecia Castle, make your way through the hordes of enemies to the throne room where Leon the Dark Knight awaits. Maria tries to convince Leon to give up, but Leon talks about how power rules absolute. Just then, a portal to hell opens up, and the Emperor's back, baby! He no longer gives a shit about the Empire, and basically just wants to lay waste to everything with the new powers he's attained in hell. And Rickard says he'll stall the Emperor, buying you some time to escape with Leon on the wyvern. With my favorite boy Rickard gone, we must avenge our fallen friends and march straight on to hell through the newly opened Jade Passage. Along with the awful gameplay mechanics in dungeons, Leon having 0 character development or reasoning to join your side is pretty bad. He just joins because, it moves the story forward, I guess. He never gives any reason, and seems like he reluctantly joins you. We would have been much better off with Leila or something in our party for the final push. Heck, Rickard didn't have to stay back really if the wyvern was gonna swoop in and rescue us anyways. In fact, plot-wise, it would have made more sense if Leon would have had a slight change in heart after seeing what his Emperor has become, and stay behind to battle him and buy time when his friends and sister were about to be attacked. Either way, it's off to Jade Passage. This is kind of your last place to try and grind, but remember, the game sometimes just decides you won't be getting any stat gains anymore, so I guess it's nice that you can turn encounters off in the Pixel Remaster. After all, what's the point of fighting a crap ton of battles if you're getting absolutely nothing for it? The only thing that seems to consistently gain levels when used enough are your spells, so I made sure to slap some support spells on Leon and juice up Maria's fire spell before venturing into the Castle of Hell, Pandemonium. Pandemonium looks pretty cool and can be a bit mazy, but it's really nothing compared to all the bullshit you dealt with up to this point. So grab some good loot along the way to the throne room, then it's time for the final battle. The Emperor is a pretty tough fight, especially if you forgot to grab the blood sword earlier in the game. Most of your party members will spend their turns trying to keep everyone alive, whilst Furion keeps bashing them in the face with his blood sword, and Maria spams flare. After a long fought epic battle, the Emperor finally dies, and you've saved the world. And kinda hell, I guess. It's never brought up, but like, does this make Furion the new Emperor of both Palamecia and Hell? Anyways, celebrations ensue. Gordon says his brother would be proud of him for essentially banging his dead brother's fiancée, and Leon continues to be an edgelord, leaving the castle to make up for being a dick, I guess. The 4 comrades we lost along the way give a final farewell, and the credits roll. I kinda mentioned it back in my Dragon Quest vs Final Fantasy video, but when it comes to Dragon Quest II vs Final Fantasy II, the contest is more about which is the lesser of 2 not so great games. Let's take a look at what we're working with here. Both games have a decent sense of direction at the start, but Final Fantasy II feels completely unbalanced right out of the gate with enemies either one-hit killing you, or you seemingly able to one-hit kill them. Rarely does the game stray from this, unfortunately. It also suffers from there not being any real boundaries of where you can go right from the get-go, meaning the only way to find out where you shouldn't be going yet is to randomly encounter enemies from much further in the game and getting party wiped. Both games suffer from a lack of direction once you obtain a ship and the world opens up completely. But at least with Dragon Quest II, up until this point, the game is really well designed in letting you know where to go and preventing you from needlessly wandering into party-wiping encounters. Both games can be very difficult. I would say Dragon Quest II is a bit more difficult due to how weak the Prince of Canik is for most of the game, and the Cave to Rhone being a long, mazy, treacherous journey before you get a chance to reach a safe haven to save your game. Both games had some great music, but Final Fantasy II definitely knocks it out of the park with its soundtrack. The arranged version even made the Chocobo theme not suck ass like it did on the Famicom and PS1 versions by lengthening the loop. Final Fantasy II also had some great characters in both design and function. Despite never joining the party, Paul the Thief and Princess Hilda feel like pivotal members of the group. I also really liked Leila and Rickard, both of which joined the party temporarily. Min was cool too, but he always felt like he was like 50 levels above everyone else with his abilities. A major downside to Final Fantasy II is that all these party members come and go seemingly at random, most of them actually dying in the story. Whereas at least with Dragon Quest II, you've got the same crew for the whole game once you obtain them, so you don't have any qualms about leveling and gearing them up. As for story, I think Final Fantasy II has the better story. I know some would say it's literally just fetch quest after fetch quest, but they really made you feel like an integral part of the Wild Rose Rebellion, and that all your tasks were in efforts to thwart the iron rule of the Empire. Dragon Quest II's story is told much different and has some really nice moments where you get to see how things have progressed since Dragon Quest I. Overall though, I have to choose the winner here based on which of the two I enjoyed most. And despite Final Fantasy II having the better story and overall characters and music, Dragon Quest II just had much better gameplay, making it less of a chore to play through. The simplest way to put this is that I have and would play Dragon Quest II again, but I don't ever see putting myself through Final Fantasy II ever again. Final Fantasy II just felt like a complete mess behind the scenes, with its terrible mazy dungeons that were loaded with empty rooms and forced encounters. Whereas the only time Dragon Quest II ever really gets anywhere near as bullshitty is the Cave to Rhone. So there you have it, the winner of this matchup goes to Dragon Quest II. I'm really hoping that the Dragon Quest III HD2D remake is out by the time I stream 3 for the next entry in this series. Either way, I feel like Dragon Quest III is going to have an edge against Final Fantasy III, even though the Switch and mobile version of the game is one of, if not the worst versions. But I've heard that the Final Fantasy III Pixel Remaster fixed most or even all of the issues I've had in my past experiences with Final Fantasy III. Until then, thank you all so much for watching these videos. Please remember to like, subscribe, turn notifications to all, and share these videos around. These Versus episodes take a ton of work to make, so I love and appreciate all the support. Come hang out live both here on YouTube as well as twitch.tv/Dookie03, and I'll see you in the next one.